our needs, repair communities, create new possibilities. Imagine what would happen if we did divest from the systems that have kept us so oppressed. Imagine just what we would manifest, reclaim our resources and the power we possess. Invest in education for our youth, healthcare, housing, employment, healthy food. Address the harm by reaching to the roots. The structures will produce without using the master's tools. Dismantling all that disrupts our right to thrive. Devise a plan so we can do more than survive. And with this courage we will organize. We come for abolition, cause we know police and prisons were made with a single mission, a racist, oppressive system. So we work for abolition, cause we walk in the tradition of those who carried a vision to take us to liberation. So we work for abolition, 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 abolition. We work for abolition. Freedom is a journey, it is not a sprint. This is a process, not just a single event. And we know we must also look within as we build a transformative justice movement. And as we practice, a new path will emerge. Cycles of violence and harm that we will purge. A commitment to healing will be heard. Love and the people's power will converge to bring an era that goes beyond reform, allows radical thinking to be born. As we tear down the bars and the borders, fearless foundations of freedom will fall. Oppressive systems we undermine. Look at the flame and follow its light. An abolitionist journey we ignite. We come for abolition, cause we know police and prisons were made with a single mission, a racist, oppressive system. So we work for abolition, cause we walk in the tradition of those who carried a vision to take us to liberation. So we work for abolition, 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 abolition. We work for abolition. For the ones who are locked up inside, the loved ones who fight for their lives, black lives, criminal lives, children stuck in the pipeline, families caged at the border, natives struggle to fight for our water, stolen mothers and daughters, trans lives, targets of torture, for the forebearers who planted seeds, for the march so we could be free, whose descendants knelt down on one knee, for the masses who filled the streets, for the brave ones who broke away, proclaim the power, vision, the new day, for the next generation to say, we come for abolition, cause we know police and prisons were made with a single mission, a racist, oppressive system. So we work for abolition, cause we walk in the tradition of those who carried a vision to take us to liberation. So we come for abolition, cause we know police and prisons were made with a single mission, a racist, oppressive system. So we work for abolition, cause we walk in the tradition of those who carried a vision to take us to liberation. So we work for abolition, 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 abolition. We work for abolition.
No justice. No justice.
Abolition is not primarily a negative strategy. It's not primarily about dismantling, getting rid of, but it's about re-envisioning. It's about building anew. So abolition is really about rethinking the kind of future we want, the social future, the economic future, the political future. It's about revolution.
Abolition is not a final, concrete set of ideas. Hopefully, I think the best traditions of abolition is that it's evolutionary and revolutionary. So it's revealing new sets of questions and new sets of contradictions and then new answers and new experimentations. One set of difficult questions, or at least questions I would imagine people perceive to be difficult, especially for abolitionists. What about the murderers? What about the rapists? The reason I think that those questions are perceived as difficult is because it basically is asking us to make a value statement about the kind of people who commit those kinds of violence, right? And so I remember when I was coming into abolitionist politics, those were the two questions I wanted to know answers to right away. For almost all of my life, I had been conditioned that prison is the singular answer to sexual violence and to murder, even when I know that's not true. I think as a society, we know it's not true, especially in the United States, where the clearance rate for murders is as low as 20 and 30% in many states, many cities. So that means that 70% of people who are responsible for taking the lives of other people aren't even arrested, right? We don't even know who those people are. And lots of the people who are arrested, cops will pin extra murders on them to beef up their clearance rates. And police and prisons perpetuate murder. They perpetuate sexual violence. As I started espousing more abolitionist politics, when people would ask me that question, I initially felt tense. I would feel overwhelmed. Like if I didn't provide a quick answer, a succinct answer to that specific question, that I was failing the entire movement. But then I realized that different people ask that question for different reasons. So some people ask, what about the murderers? What about the rapists of abolitionists? Not because they're actually invested in what abolitionists would say, right? So they ask as a gotcha question, or as a way to undermine abolitionist politics, or as a way to undermine abolitionist organizing. And as I started organizing with abolitionist politics, I would knock on doors, I would have conversations with people who lived in my community, in my neighborhood. And when they would ask, it was because they were vulnerable and are vulnerable to all kinds of violence. From their partners, from their children, from their parents, from their neighbors, from strangers, and from police. And so this is a group of people where they ask, what are we gonna do? What's the alternative? When the most resource alternative for them has been the police. And they have been conditioned to think that abolition means a zero-sum game. And abolition sounds like nothing, right? And so I think it's so important for abolitionists to engage with those questions by presenting abolition as not only something, but the most important something that we can do. Because not only does abolition present the possibilities for answers to police violence, it's also a project that's committed to undermining all kinds of harm, all kinds of violence. So not only do we care about how to get rid of police killings, how to stop the jump outs, how to stop the stops and frisks, how to stop police from committing sexual misconduct, it's also how do we stop sexual violence? How do we stop murder? How do we stop pollution in our neighborhood? How do we stop food apartheid in our communities? How do we stop so many other kinds of violence that you face on a daily basis and you've been told that police are the answer when they are in fact not?
There are many connections that link the experiences of intracommunal violence to state violence and the many different manifestations of state violence. And one of the things that I feel is most critical is the area of trauma. These last 2 years have been so very difficult. I lost 2 cousins last year to gun violence. Who were shot and killed in the Chicagoland area. There was a mass shooting that occurred on 63rd Street. There were 11 people who were shot, and 1 died. And one of the people who was shot is very close to me. And she witnessed her friend die. And then the impact of that after being shot, after experiencing the loss of one of their friends, experiencing the substandard medical care, was a traumatic experience that I hadn't anticipated and hadn't really given any forethought to as part of the experience of living through gun violence. And then we were primary or secondary respondents to it, also needing care. And thinking about the multiple layers of impact that happen almost every single day in this city has me in deep reflection over how bereft and impoverished our understanding of the impacts of this violence is. The impact of state violence happens on the individual, happens in our internal world, but it also happens interpersonally on how we're able to relate to others. It has impact on the family, it has impact on the community, and it has impact on the society as a whole. And in those same ways, really all violence has that type of impact. And when we begin to look at how violent the society is, becomes a little overwhelming then, because we can understand what is the full breadth of trauma that we're living with. That's a lot of trauma. That's a lot of people walking around with very open wounds, some of whom, and probably most of whom, have not acknowledged them. And so part of, I think, what abolition does is it allows us to begin to make visible the realities of the violent systems that exist.
There are many opportunities within the immigrant justice movement right now, but there's also a lot of complexities. Some of them are, this deep understanding that we have to have as an immigrant justice movement to see our work connected to this project of racial justice work, of undoing anti-Blackness in our systems, of ensuring that we're addressing the root causes of migration, because we know that migration is a natural phenomenon that will never stop. People will come and people will go. And part of our project in this moment is to not only talk about immigrant justice and racial justice are connected and like family members, but actually they're the same fight. There are people that are benefiting from the subjugation of undocumented people in the U.S. There are corporations that are benefiting from our labor, from our ability to remain in fear and in the shadows. People are making money off of that. There's been 35 years without a breakthrough on our national immigration laws, and that's not by accident. It's not because there hasn't been political will or Democrats in the White House, the Senate, or the House. It's because people make profit off of our bodies. People make profit off of our ability to pick the fruit, and because is a disenfranchisement. 11 million undocumented people and millions more have lived and died on this soil. Being able to build and be able to be part of this community without a say-so on who gets to represent them. And I think that part of the opportunity of this moment is to be able to declare without any hesitation that we must abolish ICE and CBP, these agencies that come after our communities, that pick our mothers and our sisters and our brothers and our brethren from our beds in the middle of the night, that are responsible for the death of undocumented women in detention centers, the forced sterilization of undocumented women that we've seen in the last couple of years. So part of the opportunities and the challenges of this moment is to be able to hold with our two hands the complexity that we must deliver citizenship for millions of undocumented people, and that's not the end of the road, that the fight will have to continue, because papers didn't protect Breonna Taylor from death, didn't protect undocumented folks that have been killed at the hands of law enforcement. And so I think that it's important and it is courageous for many people. And you're seeing this idea bubble and bubble within the immigrant justice movement, that our fights are connected and that we are winning towards creating a multiracial, working class, unified force so that we can win.
One reason why we need to build political power is because currently the people who are committed to keeping the police on the streets, who are committed to keeping the police funded, are in office. They're elected. So we have to build political power to remove those people from office and to elect people and put people in office who are committed to transforming the society that we currently have. What's beautiful about defund the police as a step towards abolition is that it's an unequivocal, very clear policy demand to remove resources from the institutions that constantly brutalize us, right? And that's so incredible as a movement to call into question the legitimacy and the purpose of police, because it's not something you can respond to, and it's much harder to actually co-opt because it's a demand that's towards an abolitionist vision.
People, particularly, and I think uniquely, and it makes sense, that in the United States are very disengaged from government. There are very intentional reasons why very specific populations have been legislated out of participating, but that also serves to create disconnection and belief that change isn't possible. One of the things that was so exciting about the uprising last year was that millions of people for the very first time took to the streets, realizing that their voice is important and necessary to enact change. It's going to take active participation of the many in experimenting with how we figure out how to create these new pathways forward.
At United We Dream, we believe that those closest to the pain are also closest to the solution, the innovations, and the breakthroughs. The most strategic decision that we can make as a movement, because we have seen the rise of white supremacy, the weaponization of white supremacy in our communities at larger scales than we have ever seen before. Just one example is the ICE and CBP, these agents that that are responsible for the detention and the deaths of undocumented people in the US, their budget has risen to more than $25 billion in the last 15 years. It's the same forces. It's the same people that want to take my right to be able to have the ability to choose. It's the same people that deported and detained my dad, the same people that are detaining Black women and Black men in jails right now. And so our ability to win is only as sharp as our ability to stay united, to understand that though there are differences in our experiences, that it's going to be important to follow the leadership of Black people, of Indigenous people, of people whose lives are at the most marginalized and that are also closest to the sharpest strategy that have delivered time and time again for the people.
Abolition gives us the permission and asks us to struggle against the predetermined constructs around freedom, around justice, and really challenges us to imagine into the spaces of our imagination that we haven't yet ventured.
For me, part of my freedom dreams is to be able to live in a day where Aislinn Martínez, she's the youngest person in my life. She is a 6th grader. I want her to be able to live in a place where she knows there's nothing that is making her doubt herself, that she knows exactly her power, that she knows that she belongs wherever she goes, that she is indomitable. And I want every system around her to reassure that for her. My commitment to this work and to this movement is to ensure that the youngest people in our lives know that we tried our best to create a movement that ensured both a unified strategy that actually won, a unified spiritual connection that ensured that we continue to see the world that we want to see, and the ability to create the infrastructure for many, many young people and many, many others to come after us.
My entire life, I had this conception of imagination as something quite beautiful. I thought that imagination was something that children did or people who believe in freedom and injustice did. I've learned that imagination is quite neutral. The state imagines all sorts of ways to police us, to incarcerate us, to segregate us, to repress us, to colonize us, right? We have to have so much more of a robust imagination. And I think it has only been the imagination of so many people whose backs were against the wall, who just weren't sure how they were going to find their next meal, who weren't going to be sure if they were going to know what the taste of freedom felt like, who just weren't even sure if they were going to live. And it wasn't that they were sure that their imagination or that their wildest dreams would come true. It was their imagination and their will and their commitment to doing the exercise in the first place. And in that commitment, there was also a commitment to experiment, to try. And I just honestly don't know where we would be without that imagination and without that will to at least try to say, I don't know what's on the other side of this plantation, this wall, this border, but I absolutely know that I'm not going to continue to do this. And as long as we continue in that tradition, I think that we will have a good start.
We come for abolition.